Press play.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Press Play Podcast. My name is Rob, and I'm joined with my co-host, Michael. Michael, how are you doing today, man?
What's going on, man? Happy New Year's. Welcome back, dude.
Welcome. It's a whole new year. It's a whole new, we're starting anew, kind of. There's some things I want to talk about in regards to this podcast as a whole as we move on into it. But I am excited, for one, for the topic as to what we're reviewing today, and two, because we're reviewing Spider-Man No Way Home, the movie that I've been looking forward to for many, many years. And the second thing is the fact that if you are listening to this podcast, well, guess what? This podcast will also be on YouTube. So that way we can gather some more views that way. You'll be able to see my face. And Michael, I'm going to make sure I crop his face on Chris Evans' body. Yes. And he'll be emerging from the ocean. That's what Michael would be looking like on his end. But eventually we'll get all that situated and have a video feed
for sure. He's got to be riding a horse, though. I like everything you're saying, but he's got to be riding a horse, like they do with the Vladimir Putin photos that they do. Yes, that's what I want. Something like that. Very tasteful, very classy.
I'll make sure if they don't have a photo of Chris Evans without a shirt on top of a horse, I'll make sure I find a picture of a man on a horse and crop Chris Evans' body on the man on the horse with your head on Chris Evans' body on the man on the horse. I'll make sure we get into that.
Wow.
Make sure we get into that.
I love that.
Without further ado, let me just do a quick intro of the show. The Press Play Podcast. We talk about all things. I said video games on here. That is not what we talk about. It's a different podcast. We talk about all things movies. And we review movies for y'all's amusement. If you have any questions, comments, or corrections, you can send them our way on Twitter @AmbitiousCasual. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave them in the comments, press the like button, and subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel so that way we can get some more views going and you guys can go check out the other content that's on the channel as well. Before we get into what have we watched, I do want to address the podcast listeners a little bit. This is, I think, episode, I don't even remember, episode 6 or something like that.
I think like 5 or 6.
5 or 6. And Michael and I have been doing reviews for new movies that have been coming out as they come out, and then record them and then edit them and put them up as quickly as possible. Obviously, Spider-Man No Way Home came out 3 weeks ago, and Michael and I are very busy men with jobs, and we do not have the time like other movie reviewers do, that is their job and they get to do that. And so we're talking about what the future of what we can do with Press Play be that's more accommodating to not only our schedules, but also kind of to our wallets at the same time, because look, you can say, it's just $15 to go watch a movie. Sure, you can say that, but that does add up at times. And I never watch a movie by myself. I always make sure I bring my wife because I like to experience those things with her. And so, what became $15 and now $30, whatever. That's not an excuse. But I think what we came up with is just as fun, and I actually really like it a lot. And so. And I know, Michael, you kind of threw it my way when we were kind of discussing what we should do for the new year.
Right.
And I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go back. I know this is called Press Play, but how about we press rewind? Okay. And let's go back a little bit. What's up? You feel that? You feel that? Let's rewind back a little
clever.
bit.
Not I'm playing back now.
There you go. I'll make sure that the intro music on those episodes are playing in rewind. And we'll go back and watch older movies and kind of analyze them. And we'll talk about them here on the podcast. I really like this idea just because of the fact that I know for sure that I have big pockets that are empty in my brain of movies that I just never watched. And there's many of them. And I'm the kind of person where people are like, man, you like movies, but you haven't seen that movie. And I'm like, yeah, I just never gone around to it. And so I feel like it'd be awesome to do that and actually get deep. Like dive deep into those movies and maybe look and see how those movies affected and really just inspired other movies after it. And so, Michael, how does that sound to you, man? I know that's something we've been talking about.
I'm super thrilled. When I was in college, that's something we did. I actually took a course where it was like movies from 1890 to 1945, and then the following semester was 1945 to present day.
Oh,
And
wow.
let me tell you, man, it's really interesting just to see the progression from like the very beginning, you know, when they had like the short, like 5-minute videos, or what they had in black and white with like no sound, and you know, they had that piano music and stuff like the ragtime and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting to see how far it's progressed. I think there's a lot of things that, you know, that we pay homage to, you know, even now. Like for instance, like Tim Burton, a lot of his aesthetic, his style is inspired by German expressionism,
Mm.
which a lot of people don't know anything about, but that's something very
Yeah.
popular in the 1920s back in the day. So a lot of that stuff, I'm all for it. I want to just dissect it, and I think, you know, it's going to have a wider reach for people who just love movies in general and just would love to learn more about movies in general, rather than just, you know, just talking about whatever, you know, the new Clifford movie that came out like 2 weeks ago or something like that. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah. Hey, don't
yeah,
worry.
man.
We're gonna review that one next week.
Yeah, Clifford's coming up next week, and then Paddington 3, Electric Boogaloo's coming right after that. So we're going to make sure to hit all the heavy hitters, all the Oscar material. We're going to cover that. But on a serious note, yeah, it's just like what Robert was saying. It's like we're both very busy guys. It's not that we hate talking about movies. On the contrary, we love it. It's just that our jobs hate us talking about movies. So they try to keep us as far away from possible as that. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, that would be an excellent time to do so. So we can become millionaires and just go do that. But no, man, I'm super excited for it. I mean, I'm ready to hit the rewind button on this VHS, go a little and watch some bangers. I think there's a lot of material we could cover, and yeah, I'm here to, you know, do some autopsies on some movies, man. Really dig deep and stuff like that. So
totally.
Just no Pulp Fiction. Sorry.
Oh man, that was gonna be my first choice. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's get right into the show and let's have some fun. All right, it's been a while since the last episode, and I want to talk about what have we watched. And I'm going to start with you, Michael. You know, you've been busy. I felt like when it came to coming around and finding time to record this podcast, dude, your job was not letting you have the free time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take the L. So I don't know if I told you, Robert, but I actually quit my job on Monday. So
you did.
On the
what
3rd,
man,
yeah,
you're free.
I'm out. So I'm at liberty to discuss where I worked at. So I'm just gonna say I worked at a warehouse. It was miserable. So around this time every year in December, basically all those presents that land under your tree. Yeah, surprise! I'm gonna break it to you. Spoiler alert: 3, 2, 1. Not Santa. It was actually Michael the whole time. I came into your house and dropped off those presents. So you're welcome. So it was at the cost of not being able to do the podcast last month. So before you all get mad at me, just remember that new Switch that you got. You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank him.
Joe dropped that in the comments. But seriously, yeah. So it was brutal. I know you were doing a whole lot too, Robert.
Yes.
I mean, you had just started a new job and stuff. But yeah, we were both getting beat over the head with hours. I did manage to squeeze in a couple of movies here. One that I did watch that I actually really enjoyed was House of Gucci. And I believe that you watched it as well, Robert.
Yes.
Overall, I thought it was a really good movie. I think you really do feel the 2.5 hours that this movie is. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it from beginning to end, but you really feel it. It's not one of those movies where you're going to see a lot of action, boom, 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 explosions, all that stuff. And sometimes it's just good to watch movies like that where you can kind of just take that step back and just watch like a drama and just really enjoy yourself. And it's kind of like a true crime drama a little bit towards the end there, which is kind of interesting. But
definitely,
I honestly, you know, I'll never get enough of Adam Driver. I actually got a Kylo Ren action figure for Christmas, and he's actually chilling right next to my desk right now. So yeah, I thought he was awesome in that movie. Lady Gaga is actually a really phenomenal actress. I think she doesn't get enough credit. A lot of people were shitting on her accent before I even watched the movie, so I was a little skeptical of it. I honestly thought she did really good. I thought her Italian accent was, I mean, I'm not Italian myself, so maybe other actual Italians are probably like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? But I thought she was pretty good. I think she's a really versatile actress, great musician, all that. Jeremy Irons was really good as the dad. Al Pacino was in this movie, which I thought was funny. I guess I forgot about that.
Yes.
But yeah, I thought everyone was really good. Jared Leto, Robert, what can I say about Jared Leto? Jared Leto is it's
Your
just
favorite
Jared
actor?
Leto, man. Yeah, I mean, he's just funny, man. Even if like he was trying to be completely serious, it's always funny to me. But it worked. I mean, his character was really goofy, and I think it just played well into that. One of my favorite lines from him during the movie, I don't know if you might remember, but he's like, do not confuse this shit with a chocolate. They might look the same, but they do not taste the same. And I was like, wow, that's like, that's just funny. That was just really funny. I was watching like Super Mario. I was like, this is the closest we're going to get to a Super Mario reboot in, 2021.
Oh, God.
Until Chris Pratt takes the reins, right?
Until he comes back and saves it.
Yeah, right. Overall, yeah, I thought it was a good movie. I think it was long. Overall, I think it's not gonna be for everybody. I think if that's the kind of thing where it's gonna be like narratives, and that's kind of how Ridley Scott is as a director and writer. He's very much, he's a lover of the cinema, and telling a story. He's not really into the whole boom boom pow, action movies, as you might have heard in his latest interview, where he was just kind of shitting on millennials for the last duel, which was great. It's like I just imagine him in his front lawn, just waving his fist angrily while he was talking to the, the journalist or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Just like, God, there's like the Simpsons meme where like the grandpa or whatever shaking his fist at the cloud. Yeah. I was like, that's really Scott, dude. And welcome to 2021 or 2022. It's, just getting all mad at millennials and shit. So
we're 5 years away from him making a Marvel movie.
Yeah, he's going to cave. Him and Scorsese are going to team up, make a Marvel movie. It's going to be great. They're going to have Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro. They're going to de-age them about 30 years. And they're just, they're going to be like anti-heroes, and they're going to be like Super Meatball and Spaghetti Man or something.
I'll watch it.
Or what were your thoughts on House of Gucci, Robert?
Yeah, man. So I think what's interesting about this is because we're in the exit, hopefully. God, knock on wood. We're in the exit of this COVID thing. And so it's strange that we watched The Last Duel, which is directed by Ridley Scott, and then not even a month or two later, House of Gucci comes out and it's directed by Ridley Scott. So it must have been somewhere at the very beginning of COVID that The Last Duel or House of Gucci was being filmed and then delayed release and then release, and it's just weird how all that worked for him. And so there's two Ridley Scott movies that came out in the same year, and both of them are complete opposites of each other. But I think what you can tell that he does so well is build up tension. And I felt the tension throughout the entire movie, even when it came with just like small moments. There's I really enjoyed Lady Gaga's performance. I think that she did a great job. There were some moments where she played the character so well where I'm like, why are you doing that right now? Like, this is not, like you can picture. Yeah, like you can picture she portrayed this character very, very well. I think Adam Driver did such a great job. I mean, what is this not like his third movie this year already? We got House of Gucci. There is he was in The Last Duel. He's in both Ridley Scott movies, and then he was in some other movie this year. I forgot what it was. And he's awesome, dude. So he did another bang up job on this one. The entire surrounding cast is awesome. I truly think that Jared Leto is going to get a supporting actor nom for this movie. I think it's the fact that when you don't know it's him, you don't know. Like if you watch the movie, 1,000%. If you watch the movie without ever seeing who's the cast or whatever, I can tell you just by watching, oh, that's Adam Driver. Oh, that's Al Pacino. Oh, that's Lady Gaga. But I could not tell you that was Jared Leto. And I think there's nominations for costume, if I'm not mistaken. There's a good chance that this movie might for sure get a nomination. Just for that in particular. Because I don't know how they did that. But like he has a fake neck and everything like that, but it looked so real. They did a great job. Great job.
It's almost like they casted Ron Jeremy for the role. They're like, all right, like how can we make this guy as disgusting as possible? Like, because I mean, I'll be honest, Jared Leto's a very conventionally attractive person. So like, how can we make this guy look as Italian Ron Jeremy as possible?
For real.
How can we pull this off? And I think you're exactly right. I think everyone did a very excellent role. Even I think Al Pacino should honestly get like a nod because it's kind of a similar situation. If you didn't know that was Al Pacino, you would have known. He just looks like some generic old guy
Right.
playing an Italian mogul. So I was actually very surprised, that was Al Pacino. He has such versatility with his acting, and yeah, I agree. It's like all these characters did a really excellent job in getting lost in their character, and I mean, hats off to Adam Driver, honestly, just for
Oh yeah.
being a hustler this year.
Yeah.
Now, if I were to ask you, Robert, between The Last Duel or House of Gucci, what would you have to prefer? Which one would you say is better?
Man, that's a hard one, dude, because I felt like the last duel went there in a very uncomfortable way. And I like you kind of have to give Ridley and the rest of the entire cast like props for actually like going there. Um, and I thought it was very poignant, that movie. Um, yes, I think you will have a little bit more fun watching House of Gucci just because of the fact that it feels more like a natural film. While the last duel was literally playing with perspectives, and you will see scenes played out three different times from three different perspectives. So to some people, you'll get bored with it. Oh, dude, that you put me in such a. I think I walked out enjoying House of Gucci more than Last Duel. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just with the subject matter of The Last Duel, I think it'd be a hard movie to just be like, wow, I would really go watch that again for
Yeah,
a second
yeah,
time.
for real,
That was
for
really
real.
great. I think I agree. I think what's interesting is for me, it's just how stylized a lot of Ridley Scott's movies are. I'm more of a Nicholas Winding Refn kind of fan where it's like I like those like
Mm,
harsh neon lights. I like movies that are colorful.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I like Ridley Scott's aesthetic, I guess is the best way to put it. He has a very distinct aesthetic. It's very dark, very grainy, and
yes,
with House of Gucci, he was able to pull it off where it still looked really, really sexy. I guess I don't have a really better word for it, but it was a very
yeah. I can
attractive
tell.
movie. Um, and overall, I just felt sad. I really felt like I
Mm,
enjoyed the hell out of the movie, but I felt sad because it really touched me on a personal level where I was like, so that's kind of like the dangers of greed and money. It's like, they had a very, you know, caring and loving relationship, at least towards the beginning, whether, if you think that, what's her name? Patricia, is that what it
yeah,
was?
yes, yes, yes,
Lady
yes, yes.
Gaga's character,
Yeah,
was just doing it for the money.
Patricia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I genuinely think she loved Adam Driver's character, Maurizio, at the beginning. And I think what really made it all cloudy was just the family ties. Like they kept pushing him and pushing him to go involved in the family. He didn't want to go. They kept pushing him and pushing him. And then, they created this monster at the end. You know what I mean? Where he was kind of
Oh, do you
fixated on the
truly
month
think so?
that
You
she
think
was.
like you actually like you think she literally was in love with him the whole time?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Hmm.
Just
Interesting.
because at the beginning, I mean, she didn't really know who the hell he was, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there was the name recognition, right? But like even at the get go, when he gets the call from Al Pacino's character, the uncle, right? They're
Yeah.
living in like the house or whatever, and they're just doing
Mm,
laundry. They're just hanging out. Um, and you could tell there's no expectation from her character right off the bat. Like, she's demanding this lavish lifestyle. And funny enough, Adam Driver is the one that gets kicked to the curb. He's the one that has to go get a job at her dad's company. So if
that's true.
anything, she was the one putting the team on her back the whole time. It wasn't until it's like she got a little taste of the good life, and then she's like, "Oh, I want more." But
That's
I
true.
always saw them as a team, and that's what made it a little bit more tragic towards the end. When he finally gets killed off, it was just really sad because you really do like
Yeah.
Maurizio as a character, and
Yeah.
Adam Driver did a phenomenal job. So it really resonated with me at the end. I
Very
remember
good point.
watched it with my girlfriend. We were talking about it for a good while. So that's my 2 cents on House of Gucci. Um, the other movie that I did watch, if you wanted me to go ahead and talk about
Well,
that one
real
as
quick,
well, go for it.
before you move on, I do want to ask you one question. I'm going back to Jared Leto because why not?
Go.
Okay. Let's rewind this a little bit. When how do you think that works? Because there's certain actors that I know that don't need to do the whole the whole conventional like go through the casting process. How do
Right.
you think it works to where like really Scott sees Jared Leto and is like, yeah, the makeup department will take care of that
I
because
think
they have to have a picture that they have to refer to. Like
right.
so how like the amount of just pure like he really relies on the fact that he knows that his costume department will get this job done.
Well, you know what's funny is that really Scott's kind of a dick because if you go ahead and look up a picture of like a lot of these people from real life, the character that Jared Leto's playing looks absolutely nothing like that guy. Like they made him like fat, and like I said, like he looks a lot more like Ron Jeremy. Jeremy, he looks more like Ron Jeremy than he looks like the actual guy he's trying to look like. So I think it's almost like to answer your question directly, I think Ridley Scott has kind of like a Rolodex of actors that he likes working with, and it's very obvious. Like obviously, he had Adam Driver for both of his movies, The Last Duel, and then he had him with House of Gucci. So obviously, he has that. He has that kind of preference, and I think Ridley Scott's been in the game long enough to where it's like most actors want to work with him rather than the other way around. So we kind of have his go-to people. And I think he just kind of figures out the semantics after the fact. And I think, Jared Leto's done other roles, I believe, where he's been in makeup. I think Mr. Nobody's the one that comes to mind. Or he just completely disappears. And I think he does a really good job of that. Certain actors can pull that off. Other ones can't. I think Jared Leto's one of those people where he could pull that off. So I think genuinely, I think Ridley Scott's like, I want Jared Leto for this movie. I'm not sure. How about we make him the uncle? And then I think he just went with a caricature of the real character because, like I think a lot of these people are just caricatures of the real life people they're based off of. So that's kind of how I figured it.
Good point. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to the next movie that you watched.
Sure. Matrix Resurrections, dude. What can I say about this movie, man? Honestly, I had really, really low expectations because it's been like 20 years or just about since like the last three were made.
So
I was like, okay, like this is the classic, Hollywood rehashing. They're just trying to make some money off the name brand, blah blah blah. I was like, I don't really know what direction you can kind of take this that hasn't been explored already. But honestly, it's funny because it really left me like surprised on like how good it was. I mean, it wasn't the best thing I've ever seen, but I will say it's better than Matrix 2. What was it? Matrix Reloaded, right? And Matrix 3, which was Revolutions. Those were kind of turds in comparison to this one. This one was really good. I would say it's a little bit less than the first one, but honestly, as far as the sequels go, this one's probably the best one. The only downsides I would say to this movie, it's a little too in your face. Sometimes with a lot of the philosophy and like the meta stuff that they're trying to go through. What I'll say about this movie, it doesn't have an issue making fun of itself. I think there's a portion in the movie, spoiler 3, 2, 1, where Keanu Reeves and I'm just going to call him Agent Smith because that's who he's supposed to be playing in the movie. They're having like a conversation, and basically Keanu Reeves' character, he's like a video game designer. Like he's back in the Matrix. He doesn't know he's back in the Matrix, but in the Matrix, he's like a video game designer. And the whole concept is that the Matrix is a video game. And so they're like even joking about it in a way because they're like, yeah, our parent companies, Warner Brothers, want us to make another Matrix game, even though it's been 20 years and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's so funny because they're like almost making fun of the fact that, or they're like kind of giving you like the giant finger to like Warner Brothers or the parent company being like, yeah, like you guys wanted us to make another Matrix movie, and they're like even saying in the movie like they were going to make another Matrix video game, wink wink, whether we were involved or not, which is true because in the real life aspect of that, they were planning a Matrix movie regardless if the Wachowskis were going to come back or not. So that's kind of like their subtle, I mean, I don't know if it's subtle, but that's like their big old middle finger to that. And I thought that was cool because they have a whole like segment where they just criticize like, sequels and where they do, I keep wanting to say remasters, which is not the equivalent or whatever.
The remakes?
Remakes. That's what I'm thinking. I was like remakes. Yeah, like when they do remakes and stuff, definitely not remasters. We're talking about video games just now. When they do remakes of movies and stuff like that for cash grabs. So they poke fun at all that kind of stuff. But I would say like sometimes it's a little too in your face in terms of like the philosophies and meta. And it sucks because it didn't have the original character for Morpheus. So Morpheus is a different actor. It's like Morpheus 2.0 is the way they try to portray it in the movie. And they don't have the original actor for Agent Smith, which was Hugo Weaving. I will say,
interesting.
Yeah, I will say it wasn't as offensive as I thought it was going to be. I thought the actor did really well. It's the guy who did. He was in Mindhunter. He plays one of the FBI agents, and then he also does King George and Hamilton, which both of those are really great characters. I think he's a phenomenal actor, and he did a really good job in this movie.
Jonathan Groff.
Jonathan Groff. Hats off to you, sir. You did an excellent job in that movie. I'm sure he's going to listen to this like as soon as it comes out.
He sure will.
But overall, I thought it was really good, Robert. I would definitely recommend taking a chance on it. But I mean, honestly, you're not going to be missing a whole lot if you decide not to watch it either. It's a pretty good romp, I would say.
That's interesting because I when you look at the when this movie released and just all the reviews were pouring in, it was very negative, very negative. So I'm surprised that you enjoy it. Like I said before, I say anything about this, I've never seen any Matrix movies, any of them. That was one of the things that my parents were like. My parents were like, you can't watch that. And so I was like, I don't know why, but all right, you're my parents. We will rewind and we will watch one of those for sure.
It's like it's going to fry your brain, Robert.
Exactly.
You're going to start doing bullet time when you're taking a shower or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. But overall, yeah, it's interesting because IGN, I think, gave it like a 4 or a 3. It was very low.
Yeah,
they dogged on it. And I was like, this is IGN. I was like, wow, IGN's pretty. They're like the nice parent. Like, like if you're gonna get yelled at by somebody, you want to get yelled at by IGN because they're gonna be nice. They're gonna go easy on you. They're gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna take your Game Boy for like an hour and then like think about it. But they went ham on them, and then I think it was GameSpot gave it like a 7 or an 8, and it was like drastically different perspectives on it. But yeah, man, it's an interesting watch for everybody listening. I think I think you've got nothing else to do on a Friday night. I think it's worth the watch. But that's all I got, Robert. I'm gonna stop talking your ear off here, and then the audience. Go ahead and lay it on thick. What do you got?
All right, man. So I know for a fact I watched maybe double whatever this was on my list, but I totally forgot what a lot of them were, and so I tried remembering which ones were that I watched. And so we talked about House of Gucci. That was one that we watched. And another movie that I watched was Licorice Pizza. Oh my God, that was
Licorice.
So hard to say.
I love that.
This is a movie by Paul Thomas Anderson, and he directed it. He wrote it. There is what's his name? The Hoffman guy, the one who passed away.
Cooper Hoffman. Cooper Hoffman.
Cooper Hoffman. There we go. Thank you. He is in this movie.
Wow.
Cooper. Yeah, licorice, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Cooper Hoffman, along with I don't even remember her name. She's new to this, but she's one of the singers from Haim.
Yeah. One of the Haim sisters.
One of the Haim sisters, one of the 3. They're the leads in this movie. And it is kind of like one of those set piece movies that is just like, this is about this time and place in the life that someone lived during these time period. And so that's very much so what it is. I tell you what, I enjoyed my burger at Alamo more than I did at this movie. The movie was okay. The movie was okay. It was okay.
Some fighting words, Robert.
Yeah.
Make some people mad.
Better be careful. Hey, please make sure you don't unsubscribe, please. Okay, please. The movie was okay. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about this movie as if it was like, yo, this is like the movie. And in my mind, I'm like, man, you must have been in a box for the past year and a half, which many people have. Because I'm like, this movie wasn't just that amazing. It's just, the dynamics between the two characters is great. I enjoyed the little antics that they found themselves in every other 30 minutes. Like, it was fun. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it. It was fun, but it just wasn't amazing to me. And it was one of those movies that by watching it, it was almost like Paul Thomas Anderson was like, I need to make a movie that needs to get me an Oscar. So I think this is going to do it. And that's what this movie is. And it very much so gives off that vibe because it's just one of those like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. When you make a movie that's about Hollywood, it's very much so a good chance it's going to be nominated for an Oscar. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, though I love that movie, it's really good. It very much feels like a movie that's trying to get an Oscar, The same for this. And so that's how I felt about this movie. It's just okay. It was not the best thing in the world to me. So it was whatever on that one.
Your opinion upset my bladder so much. I'm gonna have to use the restroom real quick. I'm gonna be right back, but I'm gonna give you my thoughts on that real quick.
Okay, we'll be back.
All right. So, fun fact for you, Robert, and the listeners. So, when I was 23, I was in a terrible skiing accident, and they had to replace my bladder and kidneys with that of a 6-year-old girl. So that's why when we do this podcast, I have to go so frequently. So I apologize. I got the bodily functions of a 6-year-old child that can't control themselves. So it's either that or crossing my legs like a sexy secretary for the whole podcast, and my legs are starting to go numb. So I apologize in advance.
Oh God.
To kind of hop on what you're saying, I personally haven't seen it. I'm going to be honest with you, Robert. I saw this trailer like 6,000 times. Like it was a similar situation. It was like Shang-Chi syndrome all over again. Remember they had the Snake Eyes trailer, and I don't know if someone's really racist or something, whoever puts these trailers together, because they would always put Snake Eyes and Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi and Snake Eyes before or after each other. So I every time, and I drive my girlfriend crazy because, the Snake Eyes trailer was like, I'm on a new level. You remember that? Every time. So I'd go to the movie singing that, I'd be like, I'm on a new level. And I'm like, I hate myself. So I had to sit there with a rubber band. I had a similar situation with this movie, but it's like a growth, dude. It's a growth, because every time I saw this trailer, I would groan and I'd get annoyed. And then after a while, I was like, oh, okay, I like it. And now I have the song from the stupid trailer, Life on Mars from David Bowie, which is a phenomenal song. I think they did a great job with that trailer. They really sell it to you. Because, you could correct me if I'm wrong. This movie is like a slice of life, right? It's like a relationship movie. These kids fall in love, crazy antics occur, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, it's one of those trailers that also tells you pretty much everything that happens in the movie. So I'm pretty sure I didn't miss a whole lot.
You did.
You're gonna get a bunch of hate mail coming our ways. We're gonna open my mailbox and there's gonna be a pipe bomb just sitting there.
From PTA himself.
Paul Thomas Anderson. It's gonna be so mad. To be honest, it's Paul Thomas Anderson has a little bit of a cult following. You know what I mean? A lot of people like his movies, and he does kind of seem to fixate on that era of the 70s. He's a big 70s guy. What was it? Boogie Nights, I think it was the big one that came out with Marky Mark, and it had OG Hoffman, Philip Seymour Hoffman on there. So yeah, that was a big deal. That was a big movie. When I went to go for a studio tour in Dallas, funny enough, I was like 16 at the time. I don't know if I ever told you a story. But I actually went to a indie film company studio. It was a friend of my dad's, and his son was like an audio engineer there. I got a whole tour. It was like going through Disneyland, Robert. It was the closest thing I ever got to heaven in my entire life.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. I was like, this is what I want to do. That's how I knew I wanted to go into film. I was like, this is it. This feels right. This feels like my Mecca. But to kind of make this story a little shorter, I was talking to the guy, and he mentioned Paul Thomas Anderson and Boogie Nights, and like there's like really like gold standard movies I needed to watch. I still haven't watched Boogie Nights. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna say his name. I'm sorry that I haven't watched it. It's been like 8 years. I'm gonna watch it eventually. If you hate me, get in line. Overall, I think it's interesting because I think Philip Seymour Hoffman and Paul Thomas Anderson were really close collaborators, and rest in peace. Obviously, Philip Seymour Hoffman's not with us anymore. Yeah. But it's interesting that he went ahead and got his son to go ahead and act in this.
For real,
Cooper Hoffman. I didn't know that until like last week, and I was like, "That's interesting." And I think it's both of their acting debuts. One of the Haim sisters, and then Cooper. Yes. I think that's interesting. I thought for the longest time, the girl had one of the Haim sisters. I thought it was the girl from The Middle. I don't know if you've ever seen that TV show. It's like a sitcom or whatever. No, if you look it up, you're gonna laugh your ass off because it's like the daughter or whatever, and they look so similar in my opinion. I think her name's Peggy or something. I don't.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, okay, yes.
I was like, they got the girl from The Middle to be in this, and I was like, no, that's not the same person. They look nothing alike. Yeah. So, that's interesting thoughts. I think that's very true, though. I think they purposely make movies sometimes, with the intent of just, pandering as hell to the Academy. Hit all the right tones. They make it place, take place in the 70s. A lot of these guys are older, so they're, got the nostalgia goggles on hard and tight. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this got nominated or if it won something. I'm still going to watch it. I think at this point it's been, it's like a tumor growing on my frontal lobe. So I think the only way to remove it is just to watch it at this point and just get it out of my system. It's the only way you can be healed. Right, exactly. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But yeah, sweet, man. I love the input. I don't know how everybody else is gonna feel. Godspeed, but it's an interesting hot take. I like it.
I do recommend people watch it. Like, don't ever. I do want to make sure that this is said.
It's too late, Robert.
Yeah, I know. Other than Venom, other than Venom, no matter what we say, make sure you go watch it. Still, I think Licorice Pizza. I don't think it was a horrible this movie that you should not. It's not Venom. Okay, nothing can be Venom. Let's just make that clear. So this movie, I think it's worth a watch. I did have moments where I laughed. I had some moments where I really enjoyed what I was watching, cinematography, blah, 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 the coloring and everything like that. It was awesome. But again, it just wasn't that movie for me. So,
right.
Moving on, another movie that I watched, and I've already seen this movie before, but I just wanted to watch it again because I'm in this moment in my head where I'm trying to be extremely creative because I am also trying to do my own creative thing on the side.
We love it.
So I was like, I want to watch something that inspires me, and there's certain things in this in this world that inspires me deeply. And that one of those things is Wolf Children. Wolf Children is a movie that's directed and written by Mamoru Hosoda. He previously, before that movie, is known for the movie Summer Wars. And then before that, his debut movie, which is The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. It's an anime movie. I highly recommend watching this movie. It is one of those where I remember watching it years and years ago. I don't even remember how I stumbled upon it or even the reason why I even checked it out. But it just something about was like, I want to watch this movie. I want to see what it's all about. The movie came out in 2012, by the way. So 10 years ago, practically. And it is a movie about this woman who falls in love with this man and finds out that he is also like a werewolf kind of guy. And they have kids, and both of her children, a daughter and a son, they're both human and also werewolf. And so, or they can just turn fully wolf. It's not like this in between that they can do. It's just either one or the other. And so, And so, and actually, I take that back because there is moments where they do an in between, but it's mainly playing with the one or the other. And so, I don't want to go too far into the story because it will start spoiling things. But I really love this movie. The music is by one of my favorite composers. His name is Takagi Masakatsu, who has awesome music. You can find it on Spotify. It's just very instrumental, very organic. Like he has these albums, he has like the 5 parts, and they're called the Majinalia series. And he's at his piano with the recorder and his windows open. He lives in Japan, obviously. And you are just hearing both nature and his piano just working together in music. And it's just, it's so beautiful. And so the art of the movie is very beautiful. The music in the movie is very beautiful. I love everything about it. I will say the third act does slow down a little bit, but at the end, I feel like it wraps itself in a bow perfectly well. And in my honest opinion, I'm a huge fan of Hayao Miyazaki. Like I want to get a Princess Mononoke tattoo so bad. I love Miyazaki. He's one of my he inspires me a lot in the way that he does things, and he goes about it with his art and stuff like that. And I truly think, in regards to the newer age, someone who's younger now, who's making more movies, and Mamoru Hosoda is, I think, like in his 30s, maybe his 40s. I think he is the next Miyazaki, in my opinion. I think he's bringing this freshness to not only anime films, but in regards to also just these types of anime movies that are pulling for like this deep story as well as like beautiful art and music put together. And so I know so many people nowadays are like thinking to themselves, oh, Your Name, Weathering with You, like those are the big anime movies. And I can't argue with you that they're not good. They are good. And it's because the art is just so out of this world, astronomically like beautiful. They use all these exuberant colors and just trying to make it like fantastical. But I think what I like about Miyazaki and even Mamoru Hosoda is the fact that they use they pull back on purpose to make sure that they
Mm.
can get the story across without having to overblow everything. They want to keep things like as simple as possible. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I love Wolf Children, dude. I highly
Gotcha.
recommend it.
So it's kind of like and I don't know if this is going to piss you off, but it's would you say it's like kind of like a Studio Ghibli-esque kind of movie? I'm just looking at the movie
Yeah.
covers. I've never heard anything of this movie. Okay, good. I was like,
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to set him off. I say Studio
No,
Ghibli,
no.
just throw
I
it there.
love Ghibli. I love
Okay.
Ghibli so much. I think it's one of those things where I feel like this is Miyazaki's making like I think one more film. I know he retired and he's like I'm coming back and making one more. I think after that last movie is done, I truly believe that torch has been passed on to Mamoru Hosoda, and he's already made so many films. Like
Yeah.
after Wolf Children, he's made The Boy and the Beast. He made Mirai, which Mirai is amazing. And literally in a week now, we're gonna watch. Vanessa and I are gonna go watch his new movie Belle, which when he showed it off at Sundance, I believe he got like a 14-minute standing ovation. Like it is
Jesus Christ.
He is just that amazing of a director and a visionary. So yeah, he's already paving his way. You know, he already has what he's got. So I really recommend this guy and his movies and Wolf Children in particular.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it looks like he's 54. He's a little bit younger than my dad. So, yeah, I think, like you said, I think, you're gonna have to help me out here. But the creator, Studio Ghibli, what's his name again?
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki, that's what it was. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely getting in his ears. And I think it's getting to that point where, you're going to have to pass down the torch, like you said, and kind of, lend it off to younger generation. I mean, younger being 54, I guess. But, I think that's interesting perspective to have. With how you were saying it, like it's very well eloquently put. I mean, like I said, I've never seen this movie, but I like what you're saying. I like you're really selling me on this movie of having that elegance of that beautiful merger between nature and music and kind of having go because that's really how I view Studio Ghibli movies. That
Yes.
you like the colorful aspects, you really like the soundtrack of it. From what it sounds like, you're saying it's like a more simplified version of that, which is kind of cool and just kind of getting right to the roots of the story. I think that's awesome. I think movies like Akira. I don't know if you ever saw that before.
Oh my god, dude! Akira is a whole nother level, man.
Well, that's fire. But I think Akira is very like eye candy. It's very in your face. And it's a very beautiful movie. It's a very well done movie with a lot of deepness and themes.
Yes.
But I like that contrast that you could still tell a very deep story with a lot more stripped down parts. Like it doesn't have to be so over the top like Akira. But maybe that should be a movie we should talk about in detail in the future episode. I'd be
sign me up, dude.
So down for that.
Yes.
But yeah, that's awesome. What else you got?
Last one, so that we can finally get into what the movie we're talking about because we're 43 minutes in. I'll be quick about this one. I'm talking about Swan Song. Swan Song is a movie that is on Apple TV Plus, and man, I gotta tell you, dude, this has been staring at us in the face every time we get back on Apple TV Plus, Vanessa and I, because we were watching The Shrink Next Door, which is a great show to watch. It's with Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd, but I'm not going to go into that.
Right.
And so when you are on Apple TV Plus, they kept promoting this movie, and I love Mahershala Ali. He's a great actor, and his face is literally the cover of his. I remember I kept telling Vanessa like, we just gotta watch it. We gotta check it out. We gotta watch it. And when we sat down and watched this movie, it was one of those movies that I was just fully fixated on it, and then until the credits rolled, I remember turning to my right and Vanessa was like sitting right next to me. We looked at each other and we just started bawling our eyes out. And it was one of those, it's funny because in a weird way, I was like, man, I needed a good cry. And that movie totally brought it out. But it's this movie about this man, and played by Mahershala Ali. I don't remember his name. He has an illness that is going to kill him eventually. And there is these people that are able to clone you in a way fully organically. It's not like it's an android or anything like that. It is 100% you with your memories, with your thoughts. It is just an exact replica of you, but it doesn't have your illness. Like you will continue to live on through this other clone of you. and they will replace you in your life. And so that way your family and your friends will never know that you died, and you can continue on with your life. Or they will continue on with your life.
Do they keep their memories though? Does the clone keep the memories? Okay, so it's like a carbon copy. So I guess the point of conjunction here is where it's not the original. Like this is another copy of this individual. So it's like not like him living through this clone. It's not like they're putting his consciousness into this clone. It's just exactly what it is. It's like a copy. It's not the original guy.
Correct. And I think what's more weighty is the fact that the person who would literally be the person who's going to have the most emotion about all this is Mahershala Ali, the true one, who is dying because he's struggling with the idea of like, you're telling me that they're just one day, because he leaves, he's constantly leaving his house because he's saying that he's on a work event. And they're telling like, we'll have this guy, he'll be laying down in bed, he'll wake up and he'll just continue where you left off. And it's that thing of knowing I'm dying within the next month or two, knowing that my entire life is continuing without me, like as if I never went missing, And that's the point of that program, is to do that. And so it's you're watching him as a character struggle with the idea of finding, is this morally okay? Should I be doing this? Is this okay to do this to my wife and my children? Like, is it better if I just die and just let things happen the way that they should? Or is it okay if I let this clone of me continue life in my place so that way they don't have to go through that pain, And so I'm not going to say anything about the movie as a whole, like spoil anything. But I got to say, dude, it was one of those movies I think is no one's going to talk about. I think because it's on Apple TV Plus, and unfortunately it's not getting as much spotlight as it should. Right. But this movie really, really did it for me. I loved every moment of it. I think it's set in this not so distant future, and there are certain subtle futuristic things that happen where I'm like, wow, this was done so organically. Like that makes sense that this futuristic thing will work this way or whatnot. And I loved it. And I loved the movie so much. And Mahershala Ali, oh my gosh, dude. I haven't seen a movie that when you are acting against yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like when the movie is strategically trying to cut between two characters, it's the same person though. I've never seen a movie do it so well. Like there was moments where I was like, wow, that was such a clean cut. Like I know that's a cut because I pay attention to those things, but that was so clean that I would think that that's his twin, like they did such a great job in trying to mesh these scenes together with two Mahershala Ali's at the same time that it was so well done, dude. I highly recommend everyone watch Swan Song. I loved it. Go watch it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm just throwing my 2 cents in here. But did you ever hear about a game called Soma by any chance? It's like a survival.
Yes.
I'm not gonna go into the nitty gritty of that whole ass video game real quick, but I'm gonna just say it talks very closely to those things that you're talking about. I mean, it's a very drastically different setting and different things happens, but it kind of goes into those same philosophies and principles. And I think that's a really scary place to be overall. It's almost like it's going against nature. It's like going like a little bit of a shortcut there, trying to like get this second life. And I'm sure that movie delves deeply into it. I think I did see a poster for this one at Cinemark though. That's interesting.
Oh,
is
really?
it exclusively at Apple? Is it like Apple TV exclusive, or is it like they're...
It doesn't surprise me because I know because you know how Netflix and all these streaming services, they have to have their movie played for like, I think it's like 3 days or like a week in order for it to be considered for the Oscars. That would not surprise me if you did see that for Apple trying to get an Oscar nomination for this movie.
So. I mean, it sounds like a lot from basically what we talked about. I mean, I haven't seen none of the movies that you've talked about before. It sounds like I think that this one's kind of like the underdog, against Licorice Pizza over here.
Yes,
that's what it sounds like.
But yes, right. I highly recommend everyone go watch the movie. So check it out. Blah, 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 blah. Let's get on to the rest of the entire show, guys. All right, we are in the topic of the show, and we are reviewing Spider-Man: No Way Home. We're in the spoiler-free zone. Before we get into our spoiler-free thoughts, I just want to go through some of the castings and the credits and stuff like that. Directed by John Watts, he directed both Spider-Man: Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. The writers are Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. I will be talking about both of them when we get into the spoiler part of this movie because I have a lot to say about those two people. And the cast, we have Tom Holland, Zendaya, Benedict Cumberbatch, Jacob Batalon, John Favreau, Jamie Foxx, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Benedict Wong, Marissa Tomei, J.K. Simmons, Reese Ifans, and Thomas Hayden Church. And then we got some spoiler cast we'll get into later.
There we go.
But without getting into the spoilers, Michael, I want to hear from you first, dude. First off, I believe, and if I'm not mistaken, you didn't watch any of the Tom Holland movies before this. So I want to know, did you watch any of them before going into No Way Home? And two, what did you think of this movie?
So to answer your first question, absolutely not. I still haven't watched them, believe it or not. So unless someone starts pulling some strings here and starts putting on some of the streaming services I have, I don't think it's on Disney Plus either. So I don't even know. It's probably on Paramount or some crap like that. So I'm like, I probably do not have the opportunity to watch it easily. Might be on my DVR, but whatever. To answer your question, no, I have not watched the previous two. And to answer your second question, what was it again? What would I think of the movie?
What did you think of the movie without spoilers?
Without spoilers, I'm going to do my best. Overall, I think it was a pretty good movie. I think it's very it really plays with your feelings. I'll say that without going into spoilers. Okay. I think you really have to watch the other two movies to feel super attached with the characters, but I didn't have an issue picking up where they were at and just kind of getting a feel for where they were going. So I mean, without going into details, like it was very like, high school things that they were going through, like senior year, trying to get into college and stuff. I think that's really relatable and trying to figure out where your life course is at. Yeah. So I think they did a really good job of like, reminding you that this is still a kid. And I think that really succeeded whereas like the Sam Raimi movies kind of failed because he's kind of like in high school at the beginning, and then that's like kind of like a background thing, and then it just kind of jumps from there. It's like almost like, all right, now he's in his 20s basically and dealing with 20-year-old stuff, where traditionally like Peter Parker as a character has always been someone that's been like drawing that dynamic between high school life and being a kid and like being a superhero and all that stuff. I thought the action that was in the movie was pretty good. The acting was phenomenal. Marissa Tomei, hats off to her. I thought she was really good in this movie. I think she stood out to me the most out of anybody. I think we could talk about Willem Dafoe, right? I mean, that's not really spoiler territory.
They're in the trailer. Yeah,
he's in the trailer. I thought he did a really great job in the movie. So same thing with Alfred Molina. Alfred Molina does not look like he aged too much since the Sam Raimi days, like 20
that means they did a good job with that de-aging.
You're right. Got rid of some of those wrinkles. And when John Watts came in, polished his cheekbone, he was like, and just wiped it off. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I thought it was cool. I'm going to say this without going. We'll go deeper, and once we get into the spoilers and stuff, I think this movie is not going to age well 10 years from now, Robert. I'm gonna go ahead and say that this movie is not going to age well 10 years from now, and here's my reasoning why. I think this movie is a victim of the nostalgia goggles that are going around throughout Hollywood, where they're basically trying to repackage and sell our childhoods back to us. And at some point, you're going to hit a wall because eventually, you try to come. I think if you have like kids or something like that, you try to like have them watch this movie 10 years from now.
Right.
They're going to be like, who the hell are these people? Like, why do I care? Especially if you don't add the context of watching those previous 6 movies, which is a big ask. You're asking them to watch the Sam Raimi movies. You're asking them to watch the Andrew Garfield movies. Mark Webber, sure. I don't know who the director was. I never watched those guys. The 2 movies that he did, that's 5 movies to where you have to have some preconceived context to who a lot of these characters are. Like for me, for instance, I never saw the Andrew Garfield movies. So when I saw, what's his name? Jamie Foxx and the crocodile man, the lizard. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I guess these guys are important. Don't really know. So there's a lot of things that were kind of like winking at the camera, like paying tribute to. I could pick up on it. It's not beyond me, but it's kind of like, again, it feels like rather than telling a story, it's like you're watching a Saturday morning cartoon. It's like when you're a kid, you're like, oh, this is really cool. We're getting all these villains and characters. It's something like I probably would have been excited about when I was like 13 or something like that, just seeing all these villains. So as a movie, on its own two legs, not that whether it's a Spider-Man movie or a superhero movie, as just objectively as a cinematic piece, I don't think it's going to age well in 10 years. It might not even age well a year from now. And that's just because I feel like it relies heavily on those crutches of the nostalgia factor, knowing who these characters are. Whereas it does really well as a superhero movie. I think it's cool. Like if you've read the comics and stuff and you have that context already, it'd still be cool to see those characters interact with each other. Like, I mean, the Sinister Six were a thing. Way beyond they started doing Marvel movies. So I mean, even in the comics, that was really cool to see. And even as just like a Marvel superhero movie in this timeline, I think it's awesome to see. I really enjoyed this movie. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it.
You liked it so much you saw it 2 times.
Yeah. I could go on a whole tangent about how people need to shut the hell up when they watch a movie and just let people enjoy it, dude. Oh man, you're gonna get me started. But yeah, if you're gonna sit there and be obnoxious, like I get excited too. Like I'm like, cool, like certain characters appealed. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like I shook my girlfriend or whatever. But I did it in a way to where everybody else could still enjoy the movie. Other people, I swear to God, like I can't. That's what I kind of hate about the Marvel fan base a little bit, is you have these like man children that come to these movies all the time.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I get excited. I get super, it's fun. It's a good time. But to the point where you're being obnoxious and like you're giving your commentary every 5 seconds, I hate you. I can't stand those people. It's so frustrating because like I paid for a ticket to watch this movie. I didn't come here to listen to you talk the whole time. Otherwise, I'd be listening to a podcast. I'd be listening to us talk about movies, right?
Right. I totally get you.
So the first time it was like that, I had high schoolers and stuff in the back. It was horrible. It was like packed in there to the point where we made the decision to leave. And I was pretty pissed. I was pretty frustrated because it was just like, it's like, I shouldn't have to do this. Like I shouldn't feel like, and I could have been that guy. I could have said something and, got management involved, but I was like, whatever, we're just going to see it on our own terms. And then the second time it was a lot better. There was a lot less people in it, but there was just had to be that one guy. There had to be that one guy. And I swear to God, it was probably the same guy when I went to go see Shang-Chi that was just giving his commentary the whole time. I just wanted to just go in there like, just like break his neck and keep watching the movie. But yeah, it's a very, if you're that person, you need to get help. You're hated amongst your friend groups and life in general. So get help.
You heard it here first, boys.
That's right. You heard it here first. But Robert, give me the sauce, man. What's the tea?
Yes. Okay. So first off, I'm really I felt so bad that was your experience, because I remember that night we were like, I was gonna go watch it. I know you were gonna go watch it. Some other people that we knew that were gonna go watch it. And when you were like, we had to walk out, I was like, no, dude. I could only imagine how bad it was. And thankfully, like my experience, like it was good, and again, it's a hit or miss, and you don't know what kind of theater you're gonna get. And I was really thankful for the theater that we had, where everyone would literally scream and clap on the right, like the moment it would happen, and then literally like quiet back down, like let's listen to what's going on, because no one wants to miss this. And so, with all that being said, I've seen all the Raimi movies, I've seen all the Mark Webb movies, I've seen all the Watts movies, and something that you can notice that Marvel does strategically is they release certain things outside of the mainstream to slowly get people familiar with certain topics, characters, or ideas. And so when the idea of Captain America being played by Falcon was a thing, years beforehand, it was already an idea that was in comics. And then as you would get closer into cartoons, he would be introduced to cartoons. And so he's slowly starting to saturate the minds of the people, and people are getting comfortable with that character before the movie hits. Same thing goes with the idea of the multiverse in any kind of way. The beginning of this year or last year, or I don't even remember now, dude. Time's a flat circle. We got
a decade ago.
For real. We got WandaVision. We got Loki. All of them talking about the multiverse. In regards to even like the Spider-Verse as a whole, we got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which focused on Miles Morales, and multiple other Spider-Man that we had no idea who they were at all. And so with all that, and being familiar with these ideas, if you watch those things and if you digged into that kind of media, I felt like this movie will probably lasts a little longer than what I think you're saying, Michael. Just because of the fact that, again, if you don't know any of the Spider-Man or anything of the villains or any of the stuff that happens within this movie, no one knew any of that in Into the Spider-Verse, but that movie worked well in and of itself. And no one knew any of those characters from the mainstream. If someone said, "Oh man, Spider-Gwen's my favorite Spider-Man," I'd be like, I highly doubt you know who that person is. You only know them from the movie. You know, like no one really knows who that is, or Noir Spider-Man, or Spider-Pig, or like, you know, all these dumb characters that were in Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse that did such a great job in bringing these characters out. People loved the movie and they cared for these characters. And so I think the same can apply to No Way Home. But I think what No Way Home has that extra footing over Into the Spider-Verse is the fact that it plays with nostalgia. And I would have to say they play with nostalgia perfectly well. I would have to give it up to the writers. I think there would be like the literal recipe or the dish that was handed to the people making this movie. They're like, we need you to make this with this and this. It was such a tall order, and I think there was no other way to deliver it, and I think they delivered it perfectly.
Yeah, there was constant. Sorry, I was going to say, I just wanted to throw in, they were doing constant rewrites every day while they were shooting, is what I heard. So I agree. It's a lot of characters, and in a conventional film that normally wouldn't work. And I do want to clarify, like, I don't think that they did it bad. I just think, like anything else, like with food, it has an expiration date. So I think it'll spoil over time, because less people will have that significance to those particular characters. And not so much the characters, but more so the actors playing those characters, so like William Dafoe, Alfred Molina, et cetera, because they play back into our childhood. But I'm sorry, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in there.
No,
but go ahead.
Totally. I get that. And I think in regards to the way that the movie stands as a whole, I at the end of the day, and I kept telling a lot of people that I would talk about with this movie about, at the end of the day, this is Tom Holland's Spider-Man movie. And they never detracted from that, which would have been so hard. And I think they stayed on point. In my opinion, I felt like they really stayed on point. I think they delivered. And the other Spider-Man 3 movie that came out that had so much going on, which was Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi, that did not do a great job at all. I felt like this movie had 3 times the amount of characters in it, and I think that they were able to handle it the best that they can. I'm not saying that it was perfect, but I think they were able to handle it the best that they can. And I think they delivered. I think Tom Holland literally gave an amazing performance from beginning to end. Like, he really showed the Spider-Man acting chops in this one. Like, I truly believe in my hardest of hearts, and I'm going to literally upset so many fanboys out there, but just put your diaper back on, because I know for a fact you're going to whine no matter what I'm going to say.
Diapers on.
Diapers on. Tom Holland's the best Spider-Man out of all of them, in my opinion.
I knew you were going to say that. All right.
He's the best Spider-Man of all of them. I think he portrays Peter Parker and Spider-Man as 2 separate entities, the absolute best at both of them. And when we get to the end of this movie, when we talk about what happens at the very end, like, there's not a story on film that is as dark or as hopeless and at the same time hopeful than this movie for Spider-Man. Like, this is facts. This is what everyone knows as Spider-Man, as someone that we can relate to, that is down to earth and is just getting beat over the head, and he always has to make the difficult decisions every single time. And I think this movie truly did that way more than the previous movies. And we'll get into more spoilers about that later. So without further saying, this movie was great. Tom Holland was amazing. Willem Dafoe did such an amazing job.
Oh, like, very versatile.
He did not leave anything. Like, he left everything on the floor. Like, he gave it his all, and I love it. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock was awesome to see. And all the other characters, all the other actors, I think they literally did the best that they could, and they did a great job as well.
Right.
So, without further ado, what's up?
Yeah.
Before we get into spoilers.
Most definitely. I just wanted to say, that's what I love about the Marvel cinematic universe, is that they present these ideas in, like, bite-sized pieces. I think you were mentioning that earlier. Because, like, if you wanted to contrast it with, like, the DC universe, I think they try to throw everything at once.
Yes.
Whereas, like, I remember they were already, like, charting, like, the movies that they were going to make for, like, the next 10 to 15 years, back when I was in high school. Yeah. So they already had an idea of what movies they wanted to do from point A to point B, and what, beats that they were going to. And I think you made a really good point, Robert, where it was kind of like they gave you little morsels to kind of get you an idea, get you familiar with like not only just characters, but just concepts like the multiverse. Because like if you went ahead and you started with like Iron Man 1, right? Back with Robert Downey Jr., way back then, and you just slam in, you know, the multiverse at that time, you know, where it was just like at its infancies, it would have turned so many people off. It would have been like, ugh. And it's like that's, you know, that's two things, that's too much to wrap its head around. And that's I think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the biggest plight that's facing the DC universe, is that they want to do too much too soon. They don't set up their characters thoroughly enough and set up these concepts enough, because they keep going back and forth through reboots, blah blah blah, to where it's like your head's always on a swivel with what's going on. So I think like movies like Justice League and all that have a horrible time trying to find their footing just because of that. But yeah, I think this movie was executed well with the high level concepts that it's trying to get through with the multiverse, all that. And like you said, I agree. Like every time there's like a tough decision to make, it always comes down to Spider-Man. It seems like, you know, he's got to be the one to make some big boy choices there. But yeah, well, let's jump into the spoilers. I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in there with that.
No, yeah. And one more thing before we get in, I just want to make sure that this is also said, is like, pay attention to everything that Disney and Marvel does that is not like they're trying to hit you over the head with, because it's going to play into something even bigger. Like I said, the TV shows, I know not everyone has the time and place to watch everything that they're doing, but there's a reason why they show them. And I'm just going to say this one thing. There's a reason why they're bringing back the X-Men cartoon series. There's a reason why they want to bring the X-Men back as an idea so everyone can get back and watching them. Why is that? Because X-Men movies are going to be coming very soon. Like, so they have these very strategic things of how they do stuff like that. So with that being said, let's get into the spoilers of the movie. Michael, we see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield as reprising their roles as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I know you have no connection to Andrew Garfield, but I want to get your feeling. When Tobey Maguire is first introduced, and I felt like it's a little lackluster, but let's just leave that out the window. How did that make you feel? Seeing somebody that was from your childhood, like on the screen again, reprising this role again, like not like 20 years later, dude. How did that make you feel?
No, I almost wanted to cry, dude. I was like, this is phenomenal. Because like, honestly, you know, like going back like 2 decades, right? There was supposed to be the 4th Spider-Man movie, right?
Yes.
With Sam Raimi one. Yeah. And that was supposed to be the big one with the Sinister Six, all that. And then like last second, they're like, nah, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so that got tossed right out the window. And then they reboot the series with Andrew Garfield. And then they're like, nah, we're not going to do that anymore. And so then they bring Tom Holland in, right? So it's almost like he just got left in the attic. They put a cover over him and he's just been left in the dust, right?
Yeah.
But I swear, I don't think I've ever fanboyed more in that movie until I saw Tobey Maguire's character. I mean, when it's all William Dafoe, that was awesome too. I mean, he fits like a glove. I mean, it's almost like Heath Ledger and the Joker, right? It's that same chemistry he has with the Green Goblin. I think the MCU's Green Goblin, or excuse me, the MCU's Joker would be like the Green Goblin, in my opinion. I think it's such a good dichotomy between the Spider-Man character and the Green Goblin villain. But I you know, honestly, it's crazy because he's kind of like the more level-headed, mature one. He's like the OG Spider-Man. People, you probably read this. People said this as well. I think he makes an excellent Spider-Man. He's kind of a weaker Peter Parker because he just looks like, I mean, like when the original movies came out, he was pretty old. I mean, I think he was in his 30s or early 30s when the first Spider-Man movies came out. So I never, especially now as I'm older, he doesn't sell me as much as like a younger Peter Parker. But I think as a grizzled, you know, older Spider-Man like he is now, I think it's awesome. I think it looks great. And I think it was the opposite for Andrew Garfield. I thought he was a phenomenal Peter Parker, but as a Spider-Man, I was like, I don't know if I see it. And I did actually watch clips of like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. So I did see the Gwen Stacy part when she falls down from the watchtower.
Yeah.
Man, and that hits. Like I did not watch the whole movie, but I saw that clip on YouTube and I was like, that sucks, man. That must have hurt. And I love how they give him a whole little redemption arc with Zendaya and stuff. I was like, that's very satisfying to see. But overall, yeah, I was really happy to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. I hope that they do something more with that in the
Same.
future Spider-Man movies.
Same.
Really would just hate for them. Even if they just give like Tobey Maguire like a spin-off Spider-Man series where he's like a more grizzled Spider-Man. I think there is like in terms of the comic books, I think there's a timeline where it's like Mary Jane had died and like it's really dark and like
yes,
like something like Wolverine, like old man Spider-Man. That'd
that's
be really
exactly
cool to
what I'm
watch.
saying, dude. That's exactly what I'm saying, dude.
I would love to watch it. I'd put money for that. I don't know if it should get as dark as Wolverine, but definitely something along those lines where it's a little more mature,
yeah,
a little more dark and stuff like that. But yeah, it's my 2 cents. Robert, how did you feel about the reveal of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire as they popped in?
It was one of those things where I was trying to figure out in my brain, like, how long are they really going to be in this movie? And how much of an impact are they going to be in this movie? Because I know that they, you want to hold off. I don't think they wanted to ever introduce them halfway in the movie. Like, again, like I said, this movie is about Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And so how do you do this the correct way? And it literally follows up the moment that Aunt May dies. And with that being such a huge emotional scene, that's the scene where we get the with great power, there must also be great responsibility. That's when Tom Holland's Peter gets that moment. Like there's so much emotion. And then it cuts to Zendaya and Jacob Batalon. They're at his mom's apartment and they're just, trying to figure out where he's at. And then that's when we get introduced to, or we get Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. And what I love so much about them is the fact that I felt like they stepped back into the roles. They weren't just shoehorning like their performance. Like I truly felt that Andrew Garfield got yanked out of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 and was plopped into No Way Home. I truly feel that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was literally 20 years after Spider-Man 3 and he was where he was at right there. Like it all felt organic and it made sense. And I loved it. And I loved the back and forth between that. What I love is that the first two Spider-Mans that see each other are Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Like, I feel like that works so well with each other because you as the audience are seeing them both try to figure out what's going on together at the same time, And I felt like that worked out so well. I loved how we get to see a little bit about how their lives are and where their universe is at. And so I love how with Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, he talks in a way where he's like, I stopped pulling my punches. Like I got into a dark place. And with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, he doesn't say much. He doesn't add on to his story of what we left off with him. He doesn't say, oh, I fought this new villain that we as the audience have never seen him fight. Like it's almost as if we don't know where he's at in his universe. And I think one that's smart on Sony's side, and it's telling about his character of where he's at, like he's not going to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man where he's going to be like, oh, I found an alien in space. Like trying to be like, look at this cool thing I did, and then Andrew Garfield's character is like, oh dude, I wish I could fight an alien. And Tobey Maguire's character is just, like you said, a more mature, grizzled Spider-Man that's like, I've been doing this for so long. Not that I don't see this as fun anymore, but it's like he's just aged, and they played into that so well.
He's like Papa Spider, you know what I mean? You got baby Spider, Papa Spider, and then I guess Andrew would be Mama Spider.
Exactly.
That whole trifecta, yeah.
And what I love is you made a good point about an older Spider-Man. Like I would love for them to do that. Not a Logan. Like I think that's too dark, and I felt like that works perfectly for Logan. But for Spider-Man, like there's a new comic book series that's actually being made by J.J. Abrams and his son. And it's about an older Spider-Man who loses Mary Jane that has a son, and like he doesn't have an arm. Like he missed one of his arms, and he is years in the future. He does not want to be Spider-Man anymore. Like it's a darker tale. And so I would love for Sony to go back to how much money this movie made, dude. There's no way that Amy Pascal and anybody in the executive chairs at Sony are like, what do we do with Andrew? What do we do with Toby right now? And so,
this movie just made Sony's like decade basically. Cause they've had some real turds. You know what I mean? So
Venom.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we didn't see a whole lot of Venom except for the end credits, so I was disappointed.
I loved it so much.
They were like, all right, he's kind of having a drink or whatever. He's trying to wrap his head around it, and then they just go back. I was like, damn it. I was like, that was such a tease. I was like, I really wanted him to like interact with the rest of them and stuff. But could you imagine like a Venom and like Tobey Maguire exchange? Like, wait, like I remember you, and they're like, you know what I mean?
That would have been interesting.
That would have been pretty funny.
I do love though that and not going too deep into that end credit scene because there's not much to talk about. Right. But I do love that was literally an FU from Kevin Feige being like, no, that guy's not going to be in here. Just kick him out. I know you all just try to get him in here, but get him out of here. We want nothing to do with him. So I loved it. He was
like, I don't want him. I was like, take him back.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, though, but to be fair, I think it'd be interesting to see a Tom Holland Venom crossover movie. Like, just kind of like see where that goes and kind of see how dark that would be.
It can happen.
That'd be interesting how it goes because I think they almost teased it in a way because they left the symbiote on the counter.
He did.
So I was like, wonder where they could go with that. So maybe it goes into Agent Venom or something like that, and Flash Thompson or whatever it goes.
Yeah.
This is gonna have to be another Flash Thompson from another universe because I would not take that seriously if it's the Flash Thompson from the Tom Holland movies. I was like, so I was laughing.
I wouldn't say much yet because do you remember Will Poulter, the guy from that everyone says looks like Sid from Toy Story? That guy's playing Adam Warlock now. So there can be some time where something can happen between those two guys, between the Flash Thompson of this universe, where he can just get fully jacked and we don't even recognize him anymore.
Do some straight up chin ups and stuff like that for like a year straight.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I think that was interesting, and I think there was a second end credit if I'm not mistaken, but we don't have to go into that too deep yet.
Correct. In regards to the rest of the film, Michael, what was some other points that kind of stood out to you?
Honestly, I like the whole perspective where he was kind of like, okay, I'm just not going to just send them back. It's like, if I just send them back, they're just going to go back to the same bullshit. I was like, we need to fix these guys. And I thought that was a very interesting point because I think, a lot of these guys, a lot of these superheroes, and especially in the MCU, it's just like, boom, boom, pow, we just beat the shit out of these guys. And then that's it. Like, we don't worry about it. But it's like, there's never an effort to rehabilitate these characters. The only person I could think of in terms of like the superhero world that ever even attempts to do that, it would be Batman. He sends them back to the Arkham Asylum or whatever. Yeah. But everybody else, he's like, nah, like, I'm just going to kill him off. I guess maybe with Captain, with Winter Soldier, but there was that personal connection, right? So
exactly.
there was that reasoning there for them to do that. Whereas Tom Holland really didn't have any connection to these characters. Hell, they weren't even from his universe.
Correct.
But I thought that was a beautiful thing that he was so altruistic and just had the real profound. It just made it more impactful for Aunt May to die in this movie. Yeah. When that did happen, I almost cried. I'm not gonna lie. And then watched the other two movies, and it was very tragic. I think he's such a good actor when it comes to like either dying or having characters die with him. He just pulls your tear ducts right out of your body.
Yeah.
He's really good at that, Tom Holland. But I thought it was interesting that they went with this perspective, and it's almost crazy because like it's like almost Doc Ock's character gets to be redeemed because we got to see a little bit of that at the end of Spider-Man 2, but not substantially enough before he died. You know what I mean?
Correct,
so it was really nice to see that altruism come through as a superhero, where it's not always just about beating up the bad guys, but also helping them. Because I mean, they're also victims of circumstance, like Hayden Thomas Churchill. What's his name again?
Thomas Hayden Church.
Hayden Church. Yes, that guy. By the way, you went to alumni, Robert. So
my bad. Respect,
Sir
Hayden
Thomas Hayden Church. I think he was a victim of circumstance. And it was interesting because I didn't watch the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but he had that dichotomy with the other guy who, from what it sounded like, he fell in a vat of eels, which was hilarious, by the way.
I love how they play into that.
Because they have two different various scenarios, but they have two different views on it. Like, whereas one feels literally empowered, like, no pun intended, energized by his new powers.
Totally.
And the other one's kind of like, I'm made out of sand. Like, I'd rather not be made out of sand. Like I just want to go home and be with my kids. You know what I mean? I think that's an interesting take. So yeah, I thought those moments stood out to me. Overall, other than that, I think the psych out where he's Tom Holland's trying to kill William Dafoe, or the Green Goblin, I should say. I was like, that was scary, man. He was going ham on him. He was just kicking his ass left and right. And then Tobey Maguire was the one that kind of stepped in, and he was like, again, Papa Spider just coming in and being like, no, like this isn't you. Don't go down this road. Because if you almost want to think about it, he went through those same story beats in the original 3 movies. Like he almost killed William Dafoe in the first Spider-Man movie, but then he showed him mercy. I think that guilt always stayed with him because he wasn't able to help him, and he was like that father figure. Same thing with the third Spider-Man movie. He went ham on Harry, literally fried half of his face. You know what I mean? And I think he had to live with that guilt. I think that's what I always loved about the Sam Raimi movies, is just how human Peter Parker was. Tobey Maguire's portrayal of it was, as that even though he was a superhero, he still had those follies. He still had those issues where he was still trying to balance out that responsibility aspect of it. He had all this power, and he just didn't ever want to go ham. So it was almost beautifully poetic in the way that Tobey's the one that kind of steps in. He's like, no, he's had enough. And then William Dafoe still stabs him, right?
Yeah.
And then even through all of that, he still has to restrain, to cure William Dafoe's character of, his goblin disease. I don't know what you would want to call it. The green juice.
Yeah, the green juice.
The go-go juice. So I thought that was really poetic in terms of that. Because at the end of the day, like, I mean, the same thing with the Joker in a way. I think even more so with the Green Goblin. He's a tragic character. He's a sad, tragic character, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of deal, where, Norman Osborn isn't like that normally, supposedly.
No.
He's a victim of circumstance, and you see that humanity play in the beginning when he's at the soup kitchen with Marissa Tomei and stuff like that. So,
because that was fully Norman Osborn in that moment.
Right. And I think, and that's just anything with William Dafoe throughout that whole movie. He just really just captured the movie, if that makes sense. He really took over the scene. And he really just did a really great job.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's very nimble for a man his age. I'll say that. Totally. They were throwing each other around in the condos or whatever. Yeah. And he was just going ham. He was just kicking Tom Holland's ass the whole time. I was like, that's really impressive. I was like, how they're having the whole fight scene. And what I loved is that they didn't really cut, the punches and stuff. Like they really went through a floor and all that stuff, and they just kept rolling with it. And I was like, yes, I love when action movies do that, where they don't cut away from the punches and stuff.
Yes,
they just let it all flow into a scene, kind of like The Raid or something like that.
Right. What I totally agree with you with the fight with Goblin in Happy's condo where he lives. It was honestly, I love that moment because they just fixed Dr. Octopus, and he has that moment where he comes back to himself, and it was that weird thing where you never realize the difference between the good Octavius and then Doc Ock in regards to the way that they acted, because we see him again. Like if you just haven't seen Spider-Man 2 in so long, we get introduced to Doc Ock as he was when he was evil. And then when he comes to himself as Octavius, like Alfred Molina did a great job in distinguishing the difference between two characters, and so there's that moment when that happens. And after that, we get the moment where Tom Holland's like his spider senses are like literally in overload. Like he knows that something is happening that shouldn't be happening right now. And I love the tension in that, because in my mind, I was like, oh, it's obviously Electro. He's right there. He's the one who's obviously trying to get away from this. But you wouldn't have expected it was actually the Goblin. And he plays the main villain of this movie practically. Like, how awesome is that the villain from the very first Spider-Man movie of all time is practically the main villain in this one, and 20 years later. And so the fight scenes, dude, where I was taken aback because I was like, man, they're not like holding back. Like the punches that Tom Holland was giving to Willem Dafoe, and he would punch him in the face and he'll just come back with the Goblin smiley face. Constantly, like it was visceral. It felt personal. I love that there's a moment while they're fighting in the condo that there's a fight move that Spider-Man does it straight from the video game, which is awesome. And Tom Holland like hinted at that in interviews too. So when I saw it, I popped up. I was like, "Oh my god, that's from the video game." But it was so well done. And leading into that moment at the end, you know, it's interesting that it's interesting that it actually was able to hit you when Aunt May dies. That it actually had effect on you because you didn't see the previous two movies, but you know, we get introduced to Tom Holland's character. He doesn't have an Uncle Ben. He never even mentions him at all. All we know is that it's Tom Holland, like it's Peter Parker and Aunt May. That's it from the very beginning. And I think it was one of those things that everyone assumed that he had the Uncle Ben moment outside of the movie. Does that make sense? Like everyone assumed that, you know, since Uncle Ben is not in the picture, the with great power comes great responsibilities has already happened off camera, but it actually hasn't happened. And I love that saying, that phrase is always the turning point for Spider-Man. That's when things change. That's when Spider-Man becomes Spider-Man technically. And so I love that happened in the third movie because in Homecoming, he was leaning on Iron Man. In Far From Home, he was leaning on Nick Fury and the rest of them. And he even tried finding, you know, comfort in Mysterio at the same time. And on top of all that, Tom Holland's Spider-Man never kills anybody. He has never killed anyone. He never killed Falcon. He never was the one who killed Mysterio. Like it wasn't his intention to ever even do that. It was just, you know, by happenstance that it happened. And so I love that at the very end when Tobey Maguire is stopping him. It's one of those things where you're like, Tom, like Tom Holland's Peter Parker, you've never killed anybody. Don't let this be the moment that you do. Because when you think about it, Tobey Maguire's character has seen every single one of his villains die. Every single one. Green Goblin, Doc Ock,
yeah, you're right.
Venom, his best friend. He's seen every single one of them die. He's seen it over and over and over again. And it's one of those things where he's like, I don't want what has happened to me and the weight that I've had to bear fall upon you. And so he stops that from happening, which is so like that moment, dude. I was like, man, I'm so glad it's Tobey Maguire's character doing this because this is the mature age Spider-Man that's like, I'm telling you right now, trust me, you don't want this. And I love that they played it off so well. And it's one of those things where I love that. I saw some people making fun of the fact that Tobey Maguire's face was just like so flat in that moment. But
right.
In my mind, I'm like, why would he be struggling? He's Spider-Man. Like they're both equal in strength. Like this is not a struggle for him. He's just trying to communicate without having to say anything like, you got to stop it. And so, yeah.
It's got the life experience too. You know what I mean? So it's exactly. Like, you got to remember Tom Holland's character is still technically a kid. So it's like, you know, he's at that age where everything, and his character of Peter Parker, you know, he's still at that age where everything's emotions, right? You're very emotional. Correct. You're very hormonal. And, you know, we went through some serious trauma with just Aunt May dying. So, of course, you know, in his mind, he's like, I need to kill this guy.
Yeah.
I'm rip this guy to shreds. But, you know, Tobey Maguire's had that time to be reflected. And I think that's a very good point, Robert. It's where, like, what you're saying in regards to the Tobey Maguire series, where it's like he's killed, or his villains have all been killed some way or another, and maybe not directly by his hand, but there's also this weight of responsibility that, you know, he wasn't able to save them either. Like it had to be this way.
Right.
And I think it's even more reflective when they find out that, you know, that Tom Holland's actually trying to fix them before sending them back.
Right.
And that's why they're so like on board. They don't even really question it. They're like, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Because they know what that weight feels like. I think they did a really good job of demonstrating that, that levity or that weight of having to take a life, or, you know, having, you know, being responsible for that life. I think it is interesting though that they didn't bring in the Goblin from The Amazing Spider-Man. Why do you think that is? Do you think it was just that bad? Or was it just that shit?
I think it came to a point where it was kind of like we can't put everything. And I think they knew for a fact that no one really was on board with that dude at all. Like Dane DeHaan as an actor is great. Like I think I felt where they were trying to go with it in that movie, but it just would have been so confusing to have two goblins at the same time. Hence the reason why we don't even see Harry in this one from Tobey Maguire's. Like without the whole controversy aside.
Take a train on the Me Too train real quick. Take a ride. James Franco. Yeah, no doubt. But it's interesting because they did do some differences on the trailer, because I think in the trailer they had the Goblin masked up. He had a similar mask to what Harry wore. A lot of people were like, "Oh, is that like, is he coming back or what?" Yeah. But I guess he just doesn't wear a mask. They did a lot of things in the trailer that they took out or changed just to kind of keep the spoilers low key, which obviously didn't work because the lizard was still shown getting punched in the face, and everybody called that out and stuff. But overall, yeah, I think this movie, I think it has depth. It has a lot of detail, and I by no ways want to say it's a bad movie. It's not necessarily a bad movie. I think though that they're really banking on the marketability of these characters more so, especially on the actor side. Because eventually, these, I mean, not to be morbid, these characters are going to have to die. Like the actors that play them, like William Dafoe's going to die, Alfred Molina's going to die. They're all going to get old, and they're not going to be able to facilitate those roles anymore. So there's going to be new Green Goblins and new Doc Ocks and all that stuff, especially like a decade from now. So the same impact, you can realistically say it's going to have that same weight, that it does for us now, especially because we grew up with these characters, if that makes sense. There's not, that's a very unique experience that, people like you and me, Robert, or, other people as well who grew up watching these movies. That's a very unique experience that you can't just easily replicate.
Agreed.
Again, that's like lightning in a bottle. So I think that's what we have in this movie. I think it's lightning in a bottle. I think it's a great movie, great superhero movie with a lot of deep themes with it. And honestly, I think it, it's awesome to see it doing so well. I just hope that it opens up the door for, I think it even hinted towards it, like other Spider-Mans, like Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Right. Love
Jamie Foxx maybe makes the jokes like, you'd think to be a black Spider-Man or something like that. And I was like, I was like, little do you know, Jamie. Little do you know. It's probably in the works somewhere. So overall, yeah, I thought it was a really good movie. That's pretty much everything I have to say on it, unless there's something else you want to throw in there in the mix.
I just want to add onto that last bit is that, I think this movie is kind of the movie that you do when you really, like, as a company, Sony, if you really like, this is your last ditch effort. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In regards to Sony Pictures. And I'm not quite sure that's where I don't think that's where they're at, but it's surprising that they did this because this is the highest that they can go and they can't go any higher than this. Does that make any sense? Like, everything from here on out has to be original, and you cannot hit something like this until maybe another 20 years from now. Like, this is it. You can't have another No Way Home. That won't work. They can have another movie with both Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire. They can do that, but it's not going to hit the same as No Way Home, no matter what, because you already did it. And so I think from now on, and I think they know where they're at. I think they know what they just did. Like, they're obviously rolling in the dough now. Like now, where do you go from here? And so I think there's been multiple rumors of Andrew Garfield coming back, and I think it's perfect. I think that's a great idea. I want to see Andrew Garfield come back and get a third swing at it. No pun intended. Because I think he deserves it. I think he was actually a really, really good Spider-Man. I liked him a lot. And I think he actually showed that a lot in the movie. And all these haters out here, all these people who are so late to the game being like, oh my God, Andrew Garfield's amazing. Like, where were you 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Like, you're too late.
I'll
be
one of those. I'm too late.
But a couple last things I want to touch on. And just real briefly, I think Doctor Strange did a good job in the movie. Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel like we've not talked to him about all.
No, dude, this movie is so jam-packed with so much. We're going to forget so much stuff. He did such a great job. I love his character. I want to see what happens in his movie because they had to do a lot of reshoots because this movie came out before his, and it was supposed to be vice versa, actually. So I wonder how this is going to affect his movie in some way. I also love the fact that Charlie Cox is back as Daredevil. I popped off, dude, when I saw that. Like, the rumors were there, but I never believed it because I was like, man, there's already so much going on in this movie. Why would they do that? They did it. And so thank God. The Daredevil on Netflix series, if you haven't watched it, those who are listening or watching, watch it. It is by far some of the best, like, down to earth, on the floor, ground level superhero content ever. Like, Daredevil is so good. And Charlie Cox's Daredevil is amazing. So when he came back, it literally brought me this happiness I was really, really hoping for, because this other character from the TV shows, Wilson Fisk, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, was also called back that same week in the Hawkeye series. So I was just on cloud nine the entire time because I loved both of those characters so much. So I love it. I love it. I love it. And then lastly, if there's nothing else you want to touch on, Michael, I want to talk a little bit about the end of this movie.
Sure. Before we jump into that, I was going to say, do you think there's any chance that they're going to bring back the Punisher series for season 3, whether it be through Disney Plus or Netflix? That was my jam. I'm going to be honest with you. The Punisher was where it's at. I think John Benthal does an excellent job. I think, honestly, if Disney doesn't want to do it just because of like the graphic nature that is the Punisher, which I totally understand, I think Sony should definitely pick up the reins and just go ham with that.
I agree, dude. I think, honestly, everything in regards to the Daredevil series, outside of the Defenders being Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones. Oh, this water went down the wrong pipe. Other than those characters, I think they knocked Daredevil out of the park. And I think Marvel knows that. And anything that was surrounding Daredevil, they know for a fact they got to keep it. I don't think there's any better Punisher than John Bernthal. Like, he brought it on.
Seriously.
And so I think they got to keep that. And I know for a fact in other parts of the world, Disney Plus does have rated R stuff playing. They don't have it in America yet, but they're messing with that around in other parts of the world. I'm really hoping that Marvel dips into
what did they have? Sorry, I mean, if you
honestly, I know that when they acquired, what was it, 21st Century Fox? When they acquired Fox, they have some of their rated R movies on there in other countries. And so, if I'm not mistaken, I remember seeing that. So I know for a fact that people have been saying that the Moon Knight series with Oscar Isaac is supposed to be a really dark, violent show. I'm hoping that that's going to be one of the first like close to rated R adult themed kind of shows that Marvel is doing on Disney Plus. Right. So hopefully that's the entryway into there. And then we can get Daredevil, Punisher, all this new stuff after that. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the catalyst of that, because that could open a lot more doors for a lot more adult content. It's just interesting if Disney would take the leap with that, because I mean, they've done adult stuff before, but they use one of their subsidiaries most of the time. Like they make it a point not to use the Disney name whenever they're doing stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see if they go for it and even take it a step further and have it on Disney Plus. Because I mean, I think traditionally saying they've been marketing it as like a family-friendly streaming service, so it'd be interesting to see if they go further with that. Who knows? I think it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm excited for Moon Knight as well with Oscar Isaac. I think Oscar Isaac's a phenomenal actor. He's honestly one of my top 5 as well.
Yes.
So I'm pumped for that. But end credits. Let's hop into that.
Okay, so in regards to the end of the entire movie, I want to just touch on real quick. We see Spider-Man who has made the difficult decision that in order to fix all of this, everyone needs to forget who he was. And the fact that Peter Parker Spider-Man comes to that realization is awesome. You know, it's sad. I'm not going to lie, I felt so hopeless at the end of this entire movie just because I didn't know how to feel about this ending. Tom Holland, you know, his Spider-Man is saying goodbye to his friends, and you know, he had this plan that he's going to try to convince them once all this happens that they had a previous relationship, like as friends and as you know, girlfriend and boyfriend. And so that moment when, you know, time has passed and he's going to go back and see Zendaya's, you know, MJ at the cafe, and he's going to try and talk with her. And then he also sees his friend come in as well. Jacob Batalon's character Ned is walking in at the same time. And not even Ned and MJ's character are friends at all. You know, like they're just acquaintances because they go to the same school. And so you see him, he's going to try and, you know, he has a whole letter written out as to how he's going to, you know, remind her or try to convince her that they were, you know, whatever. And he stops himself and he sees that, you know, Ned gets into MIT and that I think MJ also does. I forgot where that is left off. And he decides not to do that because he feels as if their lives would be much better if he didn't disrupt them and he left them to where they were at. There's that scene where he goes to see his aunt's grave, and Happy walks up, doesn't recognize him. And, you know, he's like, how do you know her? and he tells her why. He tells him why, and it's just that thing where nobody on this world knows who he is other than his Aunt May, and she's dead. You know, that's that poignant fact that the one person that is closest to him is now dead, but at least he knows that she died remembering him. Does that make sense? And so,
yeah, I think, and not to cut you off or anything like that, but I think in a more like metaphorical aspect of it, it's like when you see Peter Parker's character, played by Tom Holland's, his character go from, a boy to a man.
Right.
Because even at that end, he still has like this, it's almost fun. It's funny because it's like, it's so ludicrous. It's something like a kid would think. It's like, well, maybe if I convince him, like maybe I write this whole ass letter, like I could just do it, like that bargaining, you know what I mean? That's something like, the reality is that, it's not going to happen. And I think he makes that mature decision where it's like, and it's hard. You could see it in his face. You can see, with the whole drama setup right here. It's like, I can't, like, I'm not going to put them through that again because I've seen the repercussions of my actions. And it's almost beautiful because it seems like he goes and sees, I think he sees his aunt right after he goes and tries to go to the coffee shop. So it's like, it's almost like symbolic in a way because he's like almost wanting them to end up the same way she did, just for being related to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting. I think it's a very dark ending. It's kind of sad. But it still had that level of optimism. I think a little pinch of optimism in there. You know what I mean? Because he understands what's going on, but he's like, you know what? I still have a responsibility to, protect these people, blah, 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 and be a superhero. And it's like, I think ultimately, that opens a lot of doors for other potential love interests. Like maybe, is there a Gwen Stacy in this the Tom Holland series?
There can be, or
there can be, or like a Black Cat or whatever, situation. Exactly. So I think that opens the door for a lot of those situations to come in. So, and it's awesome because in the second end credit scene, they tease the movie of the multiverse madness with Doctor Strange. Yeah. So you get the immediate repercussions of everything they've done in this movie. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Exactly.
But yeah, I agree, 100%. Heartbreaking ending, but I think it gives me hope. I think that's what it is,
and I think that's the greater part is that he does all these things. He goes to do the attempt to get his friends back, but he's like, no, it's better if they don't know me. He goes and sees his aunt, and then from there on, we see Spider-Man become Spider-Man for once now. Tom Holland Spider-Man is now Spider-Man. He gets a dinky apartment. He has to make his entire suit by himself. It's not given to him by Tony Stark. And he has to start from the beginning. He has his phone up with all the different, police comms going through his ears so he can go help people. Like he is where he's supposed to be because that's what Spider-Man does. But he holds the weight knowing that he has this entire past that no one would ever know, And so, which is a very, very interesting thought. Like, I don't know how that's going to continue on. But what I love is that we don't even see a full shot of his suit. It's like such a quick glimpse. But it looks so much like the vibrant red, the vibrant blue. Like this is the Spider-Man that we remember.
Honestly, he probably had one of the best suits out of anybody at this point with that last one at the end. Because I think it was like a combination of almost all three of them in a way. And it just really stands out. Exactly what you said. I think this is like the most closest we've been to like a comic book iteration of that costume, if that makes sense. That still looks cool and believable and makes sense for our day, time and day. So that's awesome. I agree. I think, like I said, this ending, as tragic as it is, bittersweet, I think it gives me a lot of hope for where his character's going next.
Right.
Do you think they're going to keep doing Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland? Because he keeps talking like they're back and forth, and then like Papa Kevin and then Mama Amy are like, no. There's going to be more. Tom doesn't know what he's talking about. He's doing 6 more.
I think they did such a good job into making sure that that MCU doesn't have to rely on him anymore. And that's the thing is when you really look at it, no one really knew who Peter Parker was. The only people that he was really closest to in regards to all the Avengers was just Tony Stark. He was super close to Happy if you watch all the previous movies. And then he knew Doctor Strange. Like all the other people just knew him because he was just there, but he never had a relationship with anybody, And
they
so
still treat him like a kid, you know. They kind of like see him as like their little brother or something like that.
Exactly. And so I'm so interested in, if they were like, this is the end of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I think this is such a, like, yeah, it's kind of like a cliffhanger as to like what are all the other future adventures he'll get himself into. But like it makes sense, you know? Like it makes sense why in the next Avengers movie why Spider-Man's not there, because why would he be there? No one knows who he is. Why would they call on him?
Right.
But what I'm very interested in what they can do in the future is now we can get Spider-Man and Daredevil. You know, now we can get Spider-Man and Blade, or Spider-Man and the Punisher, and Spider-Man with Black Cat or Spider-Gwen. We know that Tom Holland's Peter, his Aunt May worked at Feast. What is Feast known for? Feast is where Miles Morales' family loves to go and get donate their time to help other people. Like now, I want to see Spider-Man within the next movie get introduced to the idea of Miles Morales and becoming a mentor to him. That's what I want to see Tom Holland do. And so I'm hopeful in that regard. But again, I'm really hoping what happens is that Morbius is not in the Spider-Man Tom Holland universe.
God, please no.
There's been rumors that they're probably, because you know how, without getting into this, can go over, they never really confirmed what Spider-Man is in that universe, because when you look in that movie trailer, they showed three different Spider-Man from different universes without
the Vulture,
intention.
right?
Yeah, like they just showed different, like a picture of Spider-Man in the background. That's Tobey Maguire's suit, but that picture was from the PS4 video game. Like they don't know what they're doing, and so
right.
There's been rumors that the Spider-Man in that universe could very well be Andrew Garfield if they do a last-minute swap, which I think would be good. I think that would be great to get Andrew Garfield back, but separate that from Tom Holland and let Disney handle Tom Holland and let them do that, and then give Sony Andrew Garfield and let them do whatever Sinister Six they want to do over there.
Right.
So that's what I think. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I feel like it's almost like with those kids, like where they don't like their mashed potatoes touching their green beans or whatever. It's like I'm all for it. I want to keep them separated. Whatever the hell they do with Mobius and that bombshell, keep it as far away from the rest of the MCU, because I just don't see that movie doing well. I mean, I might end up beating my words on this podcast, but like just from the development hell, that I've heard and seen, it's just like, I'm sorry, like Jared Leto, as talented as he is, sometimes he cannot do it all.
Right.
So I don't have high hopes, but I do like the prospect, like where it's kind of like the cartoons. I don't know if you remember watching those as a kid, where they had different characters. So they had the hunter, whatever the guy's name is,
the Hunter.
Kraven the Hunter. They've been talking about that guy a lot. I remember Black Cat being in the series, and so there's just a lot of windows of opportunity where, you know, they could introduce some of these characters that we probably haven't already seen, and kind of go from there. So I'm very excited to see where they decide to go with that as well.
I agree.
But yeah,
cool.
2 cents right there.
Cool, awesome. Whoa, this is we're at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home spoiler cast. Michael, do you have anything else you want to say before we sign off?
What did you want to add anything about the end credits with the Doctor Strange by any chance?
Not really, just because the end credits is an entire trailer, and so that's practically us breaking down a trailer to a movie that we'll probably talk about later if we wanted to. So those who are watching, go check out the trailer.
I have absolutely no idea what's going on in that trailer. So I was hoping you had more insight to that. So,
dude, honestly, if there's any idea I have what's going on, like I all I think is that in the trailer's not showing it, but we're gonna see multiple Doctor Stranges. Like, and I don't mean like we're gonna see the same Benedict Cumberbatch, but from different universes, showing the different complexities and power levels that they all were. But like that movie is like, I can't even fathom what's going on in that movie. All I gotta say is that we are getting our first Mexican Latina superhero in that movie, America Chavez. So shout out to my Latino and Latina brothers and sisters out there.
Yeah. Shout out. Who's she's supposed to be playing? Do you know by any chance?
I don't remember her name, but I know her name is America Chavez in the Marvel universe, and I think she has like powers to open up dimensions or things like that. So,
I like.
She's an alien from a different, without any.
I don't know.
She's an alien, but not in the alien that you might think. But anyways,
that's what you're saying. Get a little controversial here.
There you go.
All right, sir. Well, that's everything I had on my end. Robert, Sweet. I'm going to leave it to you to do the outro here, sir.
Sweet. Well, thanks for the honors, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the Press Play podcast. If you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button on the YouTube channel. Subscribe. Leave in the comments down below. What did you think of the Spider-Man No Way Home movie? I really want to know your thoughts.
Let us know.
My brothers, if they're listening, I know for a fact they're just going to trash me. So go ahead, do what you need to do. I did find out they liked it, but they don't agree with me saying that Tom Holland's the best Spider-Man in the world. They're Tobey Maguire guys or ride or die. So
that sounds like your brothers know what they're talking about.
I think to some they do. To some they do. Those who are listening on Spotify, I did find out that you can now rate podcasts over there. So if you have the chance, rate the podcast 5 stars. Please. So that way we can pop up more in the search bar when it comes to movie podcasts. And stay tuned to whatever we do next, because we're doing retro rewind movies from the past. So stay tuned and see what we'll be reviewing next time.
That's it. New year, new podcast, new Robert and Mike. Let's go.
Let's go. Until next time. Peace out.